I always believed that we would have gotten him home. And it's kind of counterintuitive because the initial impetus for writing this song was my sense of powerlessness and my sense of anguish on not being able to do anything really to help. And the song gave me a way that I felt like I was able to help somehow. And then come 2024, I think we all thought there was really a chance. And it didn't go that way.
That was Leah Lesch. We were discussing the song Bring Him Home, which was inspired by Psalm 126 and written by Leah and me after hearing that Hersh Goldberg-Polin and the other hostages were taken on October 7th. Leah's daughter, Nettie Wolkind, sang the song, which we intended as a prayer for the return of Hersh and all of the other hostages. I'm Shep Rosenman. This is The Rest is Commentary, where we discuss what songs inspired by the Psalms inspire in my guests. I could go on about Leah's many accomplishments, that she is a leader in digital media, product management, and technology, that she has deep roots in Boston, New York, and Chicago, and of course Los Angeles, that she is a true adventurer and athlete, and an amazing mom and friend. Most important for this episode, Leah and her family are our chosen family, and she joins me in this episode as a first for The Rest is Commentary, as both the co-writer of this song and also as the guest for this episode, which we dedicate to the memory of Hersh Goldberg-Polin, whose Yortzeit, the anniversary of the date of his death, is coming up on the 24th of the Hebrew month of Av, which in 2025 falls on August 18th. In this episode, we discuss love and loss, mourning Hersh's death while celebrating his life, the need to do something, anything in the face of the unspeakable, feelings of powerlessness in the face of tragedy and the role of hope in coping, how writing a song can be therapeutic for dealing with personal and collective grief, finding the divine in acts of kindness, the significance of hope and prayer in Jewish tradition, the complexity of hope coexisting with despair, the importance of empathy, and so much more. Let's start off by listening to Bring Him Home.
Chairs sitting empty in Baca and Tel Aviv. Photos in Los Angeles hold collective grief. I love you and I'm sorry. 2 texts were not enough. Hersh was taken hostage, forced onto a truck. Bring him home, bring him home. Bring him home, bring him home. Bring them all home. I wanna see Rachel smile, the sparkle in John's eyes. Sisters hugging a brother, a dream that's realized. Soup is on the table, steam rising, homemade bread. Sitting all together, laughing, overfed. Bring him home, bring him home. Bring him home, bring him home. Bring them all home. Stop the spread of tears. Time to harvest joy. Our voices will carry him home. Our voices will carry them home. Rachel chants this daily. We love you, stay strong, stay alive. refusing to seek comfort. She prays that he'll survive. Bring him home, bring him home. 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 Bring them all home.
Hi, Leah.
Hey, Shep.
Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for inviting me.
So I haven't done a lot of these where I'm talking to my co-writer about a song that we wrote. Usually my spiel is, what did the song inspire in you? And I'm tempted to just say, well, why don't you tell me the story of how the song came about instead, and maybe we'll come later to what did the song inspire in you?
Okay, fair enough. I remember exactly where I was when you and I had the first conversation about this song. It was in late October, early November, right after October 7th. And I was in New York. And I was visiting my mom and my daughter. My daughter, I went to visit her at her swanky office building in the Empire State Building. And I was having a really hard time dealing with October 7th and specifically the abduction of Hersh, because Rachel and John Polin Goldberg had been close friends for many, many years through our marriages and our first children and our time in Israel and our backstory in Chicago. And I just could not wrap my head around how something so evil could happen to people so good.
Mm.
And you must have approached Ivan and told him that you had an idea as a way for me to take this angst and this discomfort and turn it into something productive. And the idea was that we should write a song together, which I thought was preposterous because I can't sing and I've never written a song. And I was like, that's really nice of Shep, but like, I'm out of my league here and I have no idea where to start.
Yeah.
But I was at the offices of LinkedIn in the Empire State Building, and I went into one of their little phone booth rooms, and you talked me off the ledge and said, you can do this, and it might feel really good to do something productive.
Yeah.
And that's how the idea was born.
So specifically, Ivan was telling me how much trouble you were having processing all of this, how powerless you felt. And it was different than the powerlessness of most of us because you grew up with Rachel and you'd been friends for many years, and Rosie spent time with Hersh as a baby and you have photos of them. So it's a direct connection. Most of us, it's at second or third or sixth degree connections. And I suggested to him, I was like, well, why don't we just write a song? And that came from, I have a friend who for the moment will remain nameless, though it will eventually be disclosed because I'm going to share a song I wrote with her, who was having a rough moment in her life. And I invited her to just process whatever was going on with her with me. And she and I not only wrote one song, but we ended up writing two songs together because the process was, in fact, therapeutic. Not because I'm a therapist, but because I'm a good listener. So I'm able to kind of see, where are you going? And for me, like, one of the other things that I do is I open doors for people. I never want to push people through the door, but I invite people to go through the door, and I'm happy to accompany them. And that's not only vis-a-vis songwriting. It's come learn with me, come take this class with me, let's go, to the beach and, go wear a wetsuit. And even though, like, it's something I've never done, but like, I'll do that with people just because. Why not try most new things?
Shep, I will say that you are definitely a good listener, probably one of the best listeners that I've come across, and you are a doorman extraordinaire. Having dragged me to multiple crazy things that I don't think I would have done otherwise. So I second that.
Well, I know we have coming up, I hope. I still have to buy the tickets. I'm hoping that we're all going to go to Noga Era's, a door that I ultimately don't think it's your thing, but I think having the experience together will be cool.
Well, I took you to Fish, so you know.
Now, you didn't just take us to Fish. You introduced us to Mike. That was pretty cool. So you talked about the impetus, but talk to me about what the process was like. What do you remember?
So, hindsight is 20/20. And I think at the time I felt so handicapped as a person, as a people, as a nation, that we couldn't do anything to get Hersh home, to save Hersh. Like it was just unacceptable to me that, John and Rachel, who open their homes to multitudes and who do chesed every day of their lives just by virtue of who they are and their DNA.
Explain what chesed is.
Chesed is acts of loving kindness, acts where you don't necessarily expect to get anything in return. It's just you're going to do something good because it's the right thing to do or because you're moved in the moment to help somebody. And the fact that these two extraordinary people would be subjected to the abduction of their son under such horrific circumstances, it was unacceptable to me. And it flew in the face of everything I believed in and I thought was possible. And I felt very powerless, like you said. But with hindsight, now, when I think back on that time period when we were writing the song in November and December, and when we ultimately published the song, I think it was also perhaps through that process, at your nudge for doing something productive with my pain, it was a time of tremendous hope. And I honestly believed we were going to get Hersh home. I really, in my kishkas, in my gut, I believed that we were going to get Hersh home. And not that the song was going to help get Hersh home, but maybe it would help open doors and it would resonate with people, Jewish, not Jewish, mothers, fathers across the world, and that we could reach out to people and help explore this anguish and humanize it. And now, from this vantage point, that hope was quashed in Dolby surround sound in so many ways. So that was sort of the last bastion of real hope.
So you said you believed, past tense. Was that believed qua in that moment you believed, and what you believed before or after doesn't matter because you're just talking about the past tense? Or have your beliefs changed?
I think at the end of 2023, we were all kind of recalibrating to this new world order. And as bleak as everything seemed, there were sparks of hope. And, even in as late as Pesach that year in April, when they released the video of Hersh and they had proof of life, like he was alive. Like despite all the odds, despite the injury he sustained, despite, malnutrition and lack of sunlight and psychological trauma and he was alive.
Yeah.
And I always believed that we would have gotten him home. Like and it's kind of counterintuitive because the initial impetus for writing this song was my sense of powerlessness and my sense of anguish on not being able to do anything really to help. And the song gave me a way that I felt like I was able to help somehow. And then come 2024, I think we all thought there was really a chance. And it didn't go that way.
So I'm going to use my language here, and I'm curious to see how you respond. The song was a prayer for him and all of the other hostages to come home. And sometimes prayers go unanswered. How do you deal with that?
Oh, wow. That's a tough one because I kind of feel like I've turned my back on prayer a little bit this past year.
Do you want to explain why?
I will. But I also remember that when we were first meeting around my kitchen table and we were just riffing and brainstorming and talking through ideas and concepts, the one thing that came back to me time and time again was the Simon and Garfunkel song, The Mother and Child Reunion. And in my mind's eye, I desperately wanted to witness that homecoming. I wanted to see Rachel embrace Hersh. I wanted to see them reunited as a family, Hersh with his sisters, Orly and Libby, and their father, John, and Rachel as this formidable unit. And there was something about that mother and child reunion. I think the lyric is, it's only a heartbeat away.
Well, so it's in your first, I encouraged you to just do some stream of consciousness writing, and you sent that to me. And in your first, I'm just going to read from it. In no particular order, and more of journal than lyrics, Paul Simon's song echoes through my brain. His lyrics haunt me. I hear Hersh's name. Stuck in my mind on a loop of despair. How do they keep going? How much can a single family bear? No, I would not give you false hope. And that's a direct connection to our conversation on this strange and mournful day, but the mother and child reunion is only a motion away.
Motion away.
Right? A month has passed, agony. And then there's like several more paragraphs and my notes and your notes to my notes and back and forth.
Right.
Okay, so in our first meeting, we're already talking about hope.
And false hope. Yeah. But we didn't think it was false at the time. I mean, I think if you had asked us both at that moment, do you think we will get Hersh home? I mean, I can only talk for me, but I think that I believed that we would get Hersh home.
Yeah. Well, look, so what exactly is false hope? False hope is when you offer someone hope when you know the result is never going to happen. It's an impossibility. So for humor's sake, yes, Shep, you will grow hair on the top of your head, right? That's false hope.
And I'll become 6 feet tall.
Fair enough. But it's not false hope to say, Shep, you will learn to give up sugar. I can learn that. I don't want to, but I can learn that. It's not false hope to say, I can get my law practice under control so that I'll always feel on top of things. I'm not there right now. It's just I'm constantly chasing and I'm more behind than I'm comfortable with, even if my clients are fine with it, with where I am in the process. So both of those are true hopes, not false hopes. So I think what you're saying is in the moment of writing the song, you had hope.
Yes.
Right? And that, for me, connects very deeply to what it means to be a believing and practicing Jew and a cultural Jew who knows a little bit. All you need to know is a little bit to know that to this day, 2,000 years later, we are still praying for the Beit HaMikdash, the temple, to be rebuilt, which is a signifier or a result of the Messiah coming or coming again, depending on your view. So hope is at the core. And what's the national anthem of Israel?
Tikva. Hope.
Right? The hope. So it goes to me to this notion, and Shari uses this language, of hoping for the best and expecting the worst. So I think the song chooses to ignore the second half. And the audacity of writing it, knowing that our hope may fail, as it did in Hersh's case, it's lahavdil elef havdalot, to distinguish by 1,000 differences. It's no different than Avraham saying to God, will you save the city if there are 10 righteous people? Or the audacity of Moshe saying, don't start over with me, save them. It's not exclusively a Jewish value.
Right.
But it's a strong Jewish value to have audacity, in particular when it comes to hope.
I think when October 7th occurred and the realities of everything that was involved kind of was revealed over time, and the extent of the evil and the extent of the mutilation and lack of humanity and, people turning on people who they had trusted, just everything about it, that was such a dark moment. That was such a nadir of ugly that that's where this all started from. And I think we all felt like it could only get better. Like, it couldn't get any worse than October 7th. Like, that was like, how do you even make sense of an October 7th? That is, it's like, it's inconceivable.
Yeah.
And this was a protest against that, lack of humanity, that barbarism, and a hope that we could help in some small way, in a spiritual way, in a songful way, in sharing the pain that John and Rachel were experiencing, and Orly and Libby, and saying, we hear you, we feel your pain. Let us put some words to it. Let us put some lyrics. Let us put some melodies to it as an expression of our love for them and acknowledging the inconceivable.
Right. Well, I think your language of it's a protest against barbarism, that relates back to this prayer. We don't want barbarism. We could have said, we don't want barbarism. But instead, what we did was paint a desire of what we wanted. And what we wanted was the everyday. Hersh to come home to chicken soup or vegan chicken soup or whatever, with a matzo ball, without a matzo ball. I mean, I'm gluten-free, so it would have to be gluten-free. And just like the everyday, sitting around together, hugging, singing, whatever it is. That's what ties us back to the psalm we ended up using. We started somewhere else, but we tied it back to that Shir Hamalos, that the Song of Ascents. What number is it?
126.
Which is what we say before the grace after meals. And again, the placement of that Tehillim, that chapter, we put it right before benching, right before this grace after meals. And we say things like, Hazorim bedima berina yiktzaru. Those who sow in tears will reap in joy. And it's a subtle reminder that there is crap that's in the world. Crap isn't a good enough word for what Rachel and John and the other hostage families and the hostages themselves have gone through. But there's all sorts of yuck. And nonetheless, the Tehillim asserts, it doesn't explain how, it doesn't explain why, but that somehow joy will come out of this. And that too is this expression of hope. So, and that's, I think, what turned us around and had us
pivot.
Yeah, because you in some of your subsequent journalings, meanderings, specifically referenced, I have to go back and find it, but I'm pretty confident that you specifically referenced being around the table benching. And that's what turned us around.
I think when we were talking about it initially, one of our earliest musings, we were riffing on the concept of an Amber Alert.
That's right.
Because we were trying to make it accessible to Americans, right? Like, one individual person is abducted and every cell phone across the country, or at least in your immediate area, starts beeping a really awful, jarring tone that tells you something is drastically wrong in the world. Someone has been abducted against their will. And I think in one of our earliest versions, it's like, there's no Amber Alert for like the 200 hostages who were pulled out of their beds, abducted from a music festival that was celebrating peace. Children, parents, grandparents, people. And there was just no way to make sense of it.
Yeah.
And I think the Amber Alert helped to kind of codify it somehow and help explain it to the outside world.
Our second take, which is sort of in lyric format, went this way. There's no Amber Alert in Israel on a sunny holiday morning, people stolen from their homes, from a music festival, dad saying there's no Amber Alert in Israel. My phone shrieking, siren for a single soul interrupts me, demanding my attention. Can't turn it off, wonder who was abducted, can't ignore it, stop what I'm doing, focus. And it goes on from there. We were clearly in that moment trying to make the Israel experience palpable to those of us who were not there. And we had dinner with my cousin Tamima Tuesday night. Were you there for this part of the conversation?
I think so. When they had there was an Amber Alert that took place in California. You tell it, Shep, because you got a good.
Oh, but that's it. Tamima and her family live in Israel, and she and her husband got an Amber Alert just like the rest of us. What did we do? We looked at it to see, okay, it's on such and such freeway that's in Hetchka-Petchka land. You know, you close off your phone and you don't have to listen to it because you're not in Hetchka-Petchka land at the moment. But they don't know what an Amber Alert is. It's just a sound that reminds them of the red alerts that they get whenever there are rockets in Israel. So it would, had we gone down this road, it would have been a strong connection for Israelis. Query whether Americans would have responded the same way.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, we pivoted from here to hope. And what we ended up with is not false hope, but I think ultimately failed hope. In Hersh's case and the case of so many other hostages, you know, we still have hope for the few remaining hostages. How many are there now? 20-something? And we don't know if they're alive or not, but even getting their bodies back is a good thing for the family. Awful thing, but a good thing. So this brings me back to, what's the language you used? You turned your back on prayer. Does Hersh's murder, you were already in a headspace, but does that reinforce turning your back on prayer?
I have a couple of different thoughts about that. And one is, in the early days of October, I have a son and a daughter and another daughter who were all around Hersh's age, and each one of them lines up with one of the Polin Goldberg children. And all of our children have spent time in their home. That was the house that they would visit in Israel on their Camp Israel trips, on their year abroad trips. That was their home away from home where they would go. So all three of my children knew Hersh, knew Orly, knew Libby, knew John and Rachel, and many times John and Rachel were helping them solve whatever issue they were dealing with in Israel, whether it was a stomach bug or transportation, or my son had to switch programs mid-year, and they were there at the helm. And I think as parents, you try to shield your children from inconceivable pain. It's part of your role.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember having to call Lenny, who's my son, and tell him about Hersh.
Right.
And I just couldn't wrap my head around the idea of having your son, your only son, abducted in this way. And because they have two daughters and one son, and we have two daughters and one son, it was this like, there was nothing I could do to broker that pain, to shield that pain, that reality that things like this are even possible in the world. And I think for us, this was like a familial sense of loss and darkness, because we knew this family, not just me, not just Ivan, but all three kids knew the parents, knew the children. It was this sense of enmeshedness. And we all, on multi-generational levels, and I know John and Rachel's parents, both of them, and my mom knows their parents. So it was just this like, how does something like this happen? And when you and I finally finalized the lyrics and you worked out the melody, it was your suggestion to have Nettie, our youngest daughter, be the voice of this song. And I felt like that was such a tikkun, a healing to kind of, we experience this sense of destitution as a family. And, Ivan was instrumental in getting me to talk to you initially. And then, Rosie and Lenny spent a lot of time talking about John and Rachel. And then Nettie got to sing the song. And so for me, that was like us as a family trying to do something.
She did a beautiful job, by the way. It's such a soulful and delicate, it's like the perfect, from my vantage point, I'm completely nogay abadavar. I'm completely conflicted, but she did a fabulous job of being tender and hopeful, not being bombastic, not being timid, just the right note. And she has such a beautiful voice.
Well, she got there. And I think initially she pushed back. She's like, I'm not going to do that. And I'm like, well, who else is going to do it? Like, who better to do it? Like, you actually know him. Like, you need to do this. And she's like, oh my gosh, you're right.
Yeah.
And she landed She landed it really well with your direction and support and encouragement. So last year was a particularly difficult year for our family. So after Hersh got abducted, we had a nanny who had lived with us for 20 some odd years who suffered a stroke and survived, but had to go to rehab and ultimately had to go home. So that was a loss to the family. She'd been with us forever.
Do you want to mention her by name?
So this is Elsa, who helped me raise my children. Elsa was my wife. I might have been Ivan's wife, but Elsa was my wife. She ran my household for me and she cooked way better than I ever could. We're all starving, Elsa. So Elsa's home now in Guatemala, but we lost this pillar of person in our kitchen, in our home, in our lives. And so first it was October 7th, and then we found out about Hersh, and then Elsa was incapacitated and in rehab. And then 4 months later, Ivan had a sudden cardiac event and died suddenly.
Mm.
And now our family was truly destroyed. Like, there's no other way to explain it. And
How long were you married before he died?
we were married for 26 years.
Mm.
And we packed a lot into 26 years. And when this happened, Rachel texted me. And she said, I'm just sending you so much love and so much hope. And I'm here for you. And I can't remember her exact words, but she's so good with words. It feels disingenuous not to capture her words correctly, but I haven't prepared. So anyway, she reached out. And I said, Rachel, I can't feel Ivan's presence. I feel like he's just abandoned me. He's just disappeared. I don't understand this world. How do things like this happen? And Rachel said to me, the reason you can't feel Ivan's presence is because he's busy helping secure the release of Hersh and keep Hersh alive.
Mm.
So this was probably in June. So by August, which we're coming up to the year, when we got the news about Hersh, it was like just another kick in the face. Hence my having a different relationship with hope, with prayer, with organized religion, with the concept of a good world where you do good things and, you're kept intact and whole. And I have experienced the opposite. And Rachel and John have experienced the opposite. And not to equate our stories, they're completely different, but they happened very close together.
Mm. So, despite your having a different relationship with organized religion and doing good things for other people, code for chesed, you stay in an observant modality.
So there is a familiarity and comfort. So when your knees are knocked out from under you and you find yourself on the floor and nothing is what it seems, not where you live, not what you do, not your day-to-day, when nothing makes sense whatsoever, I think people, myself, tend to cling to the things that are familiar and give them some sense of continuity.
Mm-hmm.
And despite my being miffed at God or the concept of God,
Can you use a better word? Because miffed is like slightly angry.
Existentially let down and disappointed. And I don't even think I have the right word. It's not even, it's incredulous.
Better.
The thing that's sustained me this past 14 months has been people and community and the kindness of people and the people putting themselves out there in ways that are not normal. For example, you and Sherry, who invited me to come live with you so I shouldn't have to be alone now that all my kids are gone and Ivan's no longer here. And these are gestures that have been made like big and small, like someone turned up at my front door with a bag of cherry tomatoes. Other people would just not allow me to go to the airport alone or would be there when I would land to pick me up. So gestures of all magnitudes, support, comfort, presents, food, lots of just letting me like blah, 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 blah for hours, walks, runs, talks.
Yeah.
And that's what's sustained me.
Mm-hmm.
And that comes in this container, which is my community and was our community for 20 some odd years.
Our community, your family?
No, our community being our Los Angeles Jewish
right.
community, Beverlywood, B'nai David, Happy Minion, our closest friends. It's kind of where we all grew up and had our children. So while I take issue and I have trouble with certain aspects of organized religion, and that's also a term that falls short, what I couldn't have survived without was all of the people and the trappings that came because of that. And I recognized how much I needed them. And I think John and Rachel also were sustained to a great extent by friends and family and community. And for them, because their soapbox was the world stage, whether it was the Democratic National Convention or meeting with the Pope or meeting with Elon Musk or, being on the cover of Time magazine or being interviewed by Anderson Cooper, all these things, like the people who reached back out to them was of magnitudes bigger, but it helped sustain them because they felt like they were not alone.
Mm.
And I felt that in my own way, in my microcosm. They have their sphere where they operate from. And when I saw John and Rachel, we visited with them in Israel in October of this past year. Some people kept saying to me, wasn't that so hard? Wasn't that really hard? And I said, it was oddly comforting because nobody had to explain anything. We each understood that where we were standing was unbearably painful. And there were no real ways to quantify it or qualify it, and we didn't have to talk about it. We could just look into each other's eyes and know that we understood.
Since you're reframing, you've turned your back on prayer, is there a way to say these acts of the community are God or are part and parcel of God? You're shaking your head yes.
I felt embraced. I mean, losing someone suddenly is the most crushing, horrible experience. There's just no way to explain it on a podcast, and I don't want to take us down that path. And this is about the song we wrote for Hersh. But I felt embraced near and far and high and low in a way that I've never needed before, but I didn't even know was possible.
Mm-hmm.
And having faith in people and that people will be there for you has sustained me. I think what's particularly poignant is the fact that when we wrote this song and when we started this journey together and asked Nettie to sing it, my life was completely intact.
Mm.
This is what we do because this is the way we live our lives. Our friend's son was abducted in Israel. What can we do? Like, besides not sleeping all night and freaking out, like you prompted me to help me do something that was positive as opposed to just like being quagmired in the muck and I don't know, imploding. So you and I wrote it and Nettie sang it and that's when my life was whole and my family was normal and my life was normal. So to look back on that time now, I look back on it with such, fondness, but that's no longer my reality at all. So who I was when I wrote the song and who I am now, I'm different. I'm a different person.
Do you have a different reaction to the song?
No, the song still moves me. I'm still angry. I'm angry at Hamas. It just was also avoidable.
Mm.
It's terminal illness is not avoidable. Abducting a young 22-year-old kid from a festival is avoidable.
Yeah. I don't mean to suggest this as an apology, but to the abductors, it's not avoidable. It's a command. This is part and parcel of the Hamas charter, and this particular brand, it's not Islam generally, but this particular brand of Islam that seeks to destroy the Jews and to be rid of Israel. So for them, it's a necessity. for us, it's just wasteful. But for them, they're so enamored of their ideology that they are willing to put innocent civilians, including Palestinian children, including their own, at risk. They're the shields.
But it's a level of depravity
Mm-hmm.
that rocks everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody can really wrap their heads around what happened. And I don't know all the details of the Hamas charter, and
They've softened it, but it's still there. Is there something that you remember from Hersh's childhood that you can attribute to, oh, wow, I got this piece of information, experience, or from his adulthood, where you can diminish the sense of emptiness because he's still with you in that regard? And if not Hersh, Rachel and John, while holding Hersh.
so we were first-time moms together. Our first children were born the same year. And
That's Rosie.
John and Rachel lived in Berkeley. We lived in Palo Alto. So it was Hersh and Rosie. And Hersh was this very sweet, cherubic child. And Rosie was not. Rosie was tough and determined. And Rosie's first words were, I do it. And Hersh was just this. I said, Rachel, you named him so well. He's like a Hershey's Kiss. Like there's just something about this boy that is delightful. Not that Rosie wasn't delightful. She was just more challenging. I remember us pushing our strollers together, me and Rachel, and Hersh is just like, taking it in, and Rosie reaches over and grabs his pacifier and just shoves it in her own mouth. He didn't even cry. He just kind of looked at her and was like, I didn't know that could happen, and I'm like, oh my God, mortified. Like, Rosie came back his pacifier. And, we spent a lot of time together. We spent time together before we were married, the four of us. Yeah. And Rachel was always so eloquent, not on a world stage. And we got private viewings of Rachel's eloquence and just presence. And she's a powerhouse, but it was privately. And now she's out there, and like the world's discovered how amazing. I call Rachel a prophetess. And I think that what's so remarkable is that Rachel's the one who coined the phrase, hope is mandatory, even after everything is said and done. So I don't know if she's the everlasting optimist, the same way you are, or the eternal optimist.
Right.
But she obviously has reined that in to some degree because hope is mandatory. Yeah. And I understand that. And I think that was woven into the song as well.
So I want to reflect back here. Here's what I gleaned from the story. What you learned from Hersh was a willingness to go with the flow, right? It's like, oh, okay, she took my passy, right? He, from everything I've read, I did not meet him, but from everything I read about him, he was a go-with-the-flow kind of guy, which is why he was at the NOFA festival. Rosie is not, but we love her for that, right? And
we applaud her for that.
Yes, but both of those things are true. I think that that right there, you have a spectrum, and it loops back to the go-with-the-flow. Hersh could be with someone who's not a go-with-the-flow person as well as being go-with-the-flow. And not, like there are some go-with-the-flow people who are very insistent that you go with the flow. Right? But the lesson there is just go with the flow. You do or you don't, that's on you, right? And that same lesson translates back to this journey around hope that you've alluded to in Rachel's case. Hope is mandatory, but we also know that it had to have been diminished but not eliminated.
So at one point we thought that John and Rachel might have come to California for a Passover.
We were hoping.
Rachel and I were texting back and forth, and she said, wouldn't it be amazing if we could just bring all these broken families together, meaning her family and my family, and just be together to like celebrate the festival of emancipation. As only Rachel can say, and we still hope there'll be a future date when we can.
Pesach 2026, if Mashiach hasn't come.
Amen. And, I knew Hersh more as a child than I did as a young adult. I wish I had known him more as a young adult because it sounds like he was an amazing, amazing individual. And his parents were proud of him and loved him and celebrated his individuality. And it's a loss for everybody.
And this ties back to my invitation to write a song together about Ivan or about your loss. I've written 50 of these of my own, but we've never written one together. And that invitation will always be there, even after we write 1 or 10. But here's my question. What message do you think Ivan would want to communicate to Rachel and John and the rest of us? Because he can tell Hersh whatever message he has, because they're both in the same place. They're playing cards, frisbee, whatever, shooting guns, whatever they're interested in. But what do you think Ivan would tell us, and in particular you and Rachel and John today?
I don't know if I have a good enough answer to end the podcast with, Shep. That might have to be round 2 or when we write the next song.
Okay, fair enough. All right. Thank you so much for doing this with me. I love you so, so much. You are my chosen family, my sister, even though you're my workout wife. And I hope that talking about this stuff builds. So sometimes I end these with a bracha. So that's where we're going.
Okay.
Erev Shabbos. My blessing to you is that this conversation helps you reintroduce more hope into your life, helps you recognize that you haven't actually turned your back on prayer, but in fact, you've just changed your relationship to it. And that every time you get up in the morning and go to work out or make that cup of coffee, whether it's the good kind or the bad kind, those are all prayers. And when you go for a walk with our friend Dorit, who just lost her dad, that's a prayer. It's a prayer of hope. So I'm hoping that reframe helps you build foundation for the future.
Thank you is an inadequate word, but I think I'm out of words.
Thanks so much for listening. May Hersh's memory be a blessing, and those of all the other hostages and victims who were murdered by Hamas, as well as all of the other victims who remain alive and nonetheless suffer from Hamas's cynical actions on that awful day. We continue to pray for a speedy end to this war and for a swift return of the remaining hostages. Eloka de Meir Anenu. May the God of the Master of Miracles, Rebbe Meir, answer this prayer. Special thanks to Leah Lesch for co-writing Bring Him Home, for joining me on this episode, to Nettie Wolkind for singing this beautiful song, to E. Rose for engineering and mastering this episode and the song, to Devin Schwartz for his help in producing this episode, especially turning it around so quickly, and to Jessica Chana Swedler for her help on social media. You can find Bring Him Home and all of the other songs in this song cycle on most platforms that stream or download music, including Spotify and Apple. In the next episode of The Rest is Commentary, I will be talking with my mentor, Rabbi Shoshana Boyd Gelfand, about Nothing Left to Be Said, which I co-wrote with Liz Hanlon and is based on Psalm 49. We discuss the importance of silence, the elements of a good shiva, polarity management, direct talk, music as a vital tool for grieving, how rituals, storytelling, and community all help you navigate life when someone you love dies, and so much more. Please join us.